Hi. I'm going to start this one. It's called Why Are Things Creepy?
Hey, Vsauce. Michael here. Fear gives us life. Being afraid of the right things kept our ancestors alive. It makes sense to be afraid of poisonous insects or
Oh, yeah.
hungry tigers. But what about fear when there is no clear and obvious danger? For instance, a teddy bear with a full set of human teeth.
Oh, that does look weird. In my neighborhood or on my block, there's a house that we call the teddy bear house because the owners have this huge teddy bear positioned to stare down at the street. And I guess they have some sort of LED light around the windowsill as well, because at night you can just see that bear's face illuminated. It doesn't have any teeth showing or anything, but it is smiling. And it doesn't bother me, but the lady next door, she's a bit older. She really dislikes it. She was telling me she thinks the teddy bear's eyes have cameras in them because the teddy bear house does have a lot of cameras, all pointing towards the same place, which I don't think is that weird. We live in the middle of a very big city. But yeah, I don't find that creepy exactly. I'll go out there and take a picture after I finish recording, and you'll have to let me know what you think about it. I like it.
Or a smile.jpg. There's something a little off about these images, too much mystery and strangeness. But no obvious threat the way there is with a gun or a falling rock, but yet they still incite fear because they are creepy. But why? What gives us the creeps? What causes something to be creepy?
That is a good question. I would be less inclined to think that a thing is creepy. Like just that question, what gives us the creeps? It would be something someone is doing, a person. I'm not sure what characteristics I would consider creepy. I think it just depends on the person. But yeah, for now, my answer is not a thing, but a living being is creepy.
We are now in my bedroom, the bedroom I grew up in Kansas. Like a lot of children my age, I was terrified of scary stories to tell in the dark. But the very first book that ever scared me was The Curse of the Squirrel. To this day, I still haven't finished the book, but that's just me. Psychologist James Geer developed the Fear Survey Schedule 2, which he used to find out what scared us the most. Combined with the results of a more recent Gallup poll, these are the things that scare most of us the
Ooh.
most.
Okay, let's look at this. Suffocation, failing a test, injury of a loved one, death of a loved one, your own death, being self conscious, not being a success, snakes, nuclear war, speaking in front of a group, looking foolish, terrorist attacks, spiders, war, making mistakes, the future, being alone, criminal or gang violence. Nothing on that list is especially creepy to me, but there are a lot of things I wouldn't want to happen. And I'm not a fearless person at all. But I try not to live thinking of the things that are going to scare me. So, for example, suffocation. I wouldn't want to suffocate, but I don't walk around thinking, what happens if I suffocate today? Or what's something that would actually scare me a lot? Ooh, being kidnapped, I feel is at the top of my list of scary things to happen. But then again, I don't let that fear hinder my life. I don't walk around thinking, I need to actively change the way I move so I don't get kidnapped or, I still walk in my city late at night or if someone's walking close behind me, I don't think they're trying to kidnap. Not at all. Out of this list though, if I had to choose one, it would be death of a loved one. If something happened to my sibling, that for me is the worst thing that can happen. Write down which one of this list is the most scary to
All
you.
of these things are scary, but are they creepy? Let's get more specific. I love the way Stephen King delineates 3 types of scary stuff. The first is the gross out. This is something disgusting, morbid, diseased. The second is horror. Horror to King is the unnatural, a giant spider, or being grabbed in the dark when you thought you were alone.
Ooh,
The third,
no thanks.
terror, is different, creepier. He says terror is coming home to find that everything that you own has been replaced with an exact copy. Terror is feeling something behind you, its breath on your neck, knowing that you will be grabbed, but then turning around to find that there was never anything there in the first place. Not a lot of research has been done on that feeling, the creeps, but many theories and ideas involve vagueness, ambiguity. For instance, masks and why clowns are creepy.
The last 3 pictures that he inserted had children in them. And going back to what I said about people being creepy to me, there's something about children that can easily get creepy, which I guess must be a common thought because that is the premise of so many scary movies. The Ring, that little girl, or Children of the Corn. What's another one? The 2 twins in The Shining. A portrait of any Victorian child will creep me out. And sometimes children say creepy things, but you know what it is? I think that they evoke almost a helplessness feeling if they pose a threat, if that makes sense. Because what are you going to do if a child threatens you? Are you going to hurt them? I'm not. So maybe it's the defenselessness that comes with that. I don't know. I'll have to let me think that one through. But if you can further that thought yourself, let me know.
Claude Lévi-Strauss wrote that the facial disguise temporarily eliminates from social intercourse the part of the body which reveals personal feelings and attitudes. Part of the reason even a neutral or happy mask can be creepy may have to do with ambiguity. A mask hides the true emotions and intentions of the person underneath. I don't know if the person wearing that mask is a threat or not. Vagueness is creepy when it comes to the human form. This is the famous Uncanny Valley. On a chart of humanness, there's a zone where something can be almost entirely human, but off by just a little. Not so wrong that it's clearly fake or funny, or so good that it's indistinguishable. Instead, it's just troubling. The creepiness of the Uncanny Valley is wonderfully demonstrated by John Bergeron's Singing Androids. Watch these videos when you're alone. A similar uneasy feeling comes from Shay St. John, a character created by Eric Fournier, funny to some, nightmare fuel to others. Uncanny humanoids, like all creepy things, straddle a line between 2 regions that we can understand and explain with language. Francis T. McAndrew and Sarah Kohnke describe being creeped out as an adaptive human response to the ambiguity of threats from others.
Wait, let's look at this too. Behaviors and physicalities that were found to be characteristics of creepy people. The person stood too close to your friend. That could be. The person had greasy hair, peculiar smile, bulging eyes, long fingers, unkempt hair, very pale skin, bags under his or her eyes, dressed oddly, licked his or her lips frequently, wearing dirty clothes, laughed at unpredictable times, made it nearly impossible for your friend to leave the conversation without appearing rude. None of those are things that I would particularly find creepy. Some of them, greasy hair, unkempt hair, pale skin, that wouldn't. I don't know. I'll think of some characteristics that I could find creepy and I'll write them.
Creepy things are kind of a threat, maybe, but they're also kind of not. So our brains don't know what to do. Some parts respond with fear, while other parts don't. and they don't know why. So instead of achieving a typical fear response, horror, we simply feel uneasy, terror, creeped
More
out.
kids.
Between the mountains of safety and danger, there is a valley of creepiness where the limits of our knowledge and trust and security aren't very clear. Will looking at this cause you to die 1 week later? Impossible, right? Maybe that's the terror of ambiguity. We don't do well with ambiguity. When it involves our own intentions, it can make us lie. And when it involves danger but no recognizable threat, it can make us think and feel some pretty weird things. Have you ever peered over a ledge, a railing, way high up, like so high up it made you nervous and dizzy, and felt something pushing you? Maybe even an urge to jump. Have you ever stood on a ledge with a loved one and realized that you could push them?
No. The urge to jump off of a high point, I've definitely felt before. Not because I want to die, I definitely don't want to die. It's just, you're up there and you think, jump. I've never looked into that. There must be, I'll look for some article or study on that because I think it is very common. And I've never thought about pushing someone else off of a ledge. But do you guys know this internet trend where someone's showing a picture of their partner and they put the caption, for example, realizing your boyfriend is just some guy you decided to trust one day? I've had feelings like that where I might be in some remote area. I like to go bouldering, so maybe a state park or I don't know, on a boat. And you're with someone else and think, this person can just kill me right now. Or you're on a road trip and you're driving and you're in the desert and you think, okay, I just decided to trust you, because anything could happen. You know, the way that that sounds out of my mouth.
Oh, that does sound very dark.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just
It would be that easy. You really could do it. And maybe you do want to do it, or maybe it's just cognitive dissonance. The fact that your brain is having to deal with ambiguity. A recent study by Jennifer Hames at Florida State University dubbed this the high place phenomenon. When approaching a ledge and a dangerous drop, your survival instinct kicks in and you pull yourself away. But your balance and motor systems don't get it. Nothing is pushing you, and you don't normally fall or leap randomly. So what's going on? The part of your brain that processes intention might resolve this by determining that something must be pushing you, or that you might actually want to jump or push your friend, even if none of that is true. Now, we're not done with ambiguity yet, because our language reflects the gray area of terror and creepiness. Take a look at the word terror itself. We have horrible and horrific, terrible and terrific. Why is that? Well, through history, we never really figured out what to call powerful experiences, because they're both. They are full of awe, awesome, and they are full of awe, awful. We need them to survive. We need fears and the creeps to understand our size, our weaknesses. But on the other hand, avoiding them is pretty great too. The creeps is a physical reminder that the world is vague and full of ambiguity, but that we are cunning, always trying to figure things out, but nonetheless fragile. Is that terrible or terrific? Well, it's both, which, as a creepy ghost would say, is kind of boo-tiful. And as always, thanks for
I
watching.
love a good dad joke. I had never considered why horrible and horrific are closer to synonyms and terrible and terrific are what I would describe to be antonyms. But I like when he gives a language lesson. This was another one from the channel called Vsauce. I'm going to link both the channel and the video down below. You guys showed me this channel. I've liked every video we've watched, mostly because he gets into brain function and brings that back to language somehow. But I really like the feeling of being afraid or scared, especially when it's in literature or I don't watch many movies, but perhaps in a show or something. I just prefer it to be nonfiction. I want it to be real instead of a made up scenario. But it is interesting the point that he made about ambiguity. What I took out of that is if you're uncertain or unsure about what you're looking at or experiencing, your brain is just going to try to perceive that as a threat in order to protect you, which is something that he touched on in another video we watched. I think it was the one on solipsism. I'm not sure of the title. I will link that video in the description. But I liked how it all tied back into vocabulary. It made me think of how words such as clarity or certainty evoke positive responses, whereas their antonyms will likely do the opposite. I'll have to think about that one a bit deeper, but leave your thoughts on any of this. And for a literary recommendation, I knew what book I was going to recommend within the first minute of this one. It's called Mexican Gothic. This is a newer book. It was gifted to me a bit after it was written for Reyes Magos by my uncle, actually. So it must be 3 years old, something around there. I'm not sure. I shouldn't have said that if I wasn't sure. But anyway, it's about this woman who she's from Mexico City. She's sent by her family to go visit her cousin who just married a British man. And the cousin is convinced that the new husband is trying to kill her. And then the story just kind of goes from there. It's curious. It reminded me of a book I read in high school, a short story actually. I don't remember the last name of this author. I'll write the author and the short story title here. It's called The Yellow Wallpaper. And in this story, the woman is going through what I believe is some sort of postpartum depression. And the husband, who is a physician, is pretty much gaslighting her into believing that nothing's wrong. And he puts her into this room with yellow wallpaper, and the yellow wallpaper makes the woman's mind go crazy. That's a scary book all in itself, although it's not under the genre of horror. But there are a lot of things that are scary, kind of how he mentioned the Stephen King has 3 different types of scary example. Because if you were to read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, it's not horror, but you're in the mind of a person who committed a crime and is slowly unraveling and losing his mind. Something like, oh, what's this one where the heartbeat is under the floorboard and the man's going crazy listening to the heartbeat? Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart. These are quite similar. Now that I gave those 2 examples of those 4 different books, it's curious to think how it's hard to make a new premise for a book or a story. They just kind of keep remaking the same storylines with different characters from different angles, if that makes sense. I guess that's kind of why we keep remaking movies. Well, that's a whole other discussion. Anyway, so leave your thoughts on any of this. And that's really all I have for you. So thank you for watching with me. I'll catch you in the next video.